Mr. President.
I recognize the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Senate and quorum call.
Yes.
I would ask unanimous consent the quorum call be lifted.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I move to proceed to calendar number 168, H.R. 5371.
Clerk will report.
Motion to proceed to calendar number 168, H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes.
Mr. President, like many Americans, I was saddened to learn this morning of the death of former Vice President Dick Cheney. Dick was a lifelong public servant who believed very deeply in our country and brought his considerable knowledge and intelligence to its service. As Secretary of Defense and later as Vice President, he played a key role in shaping policy on many of the most consequential issues of his day. He was also an avid outdoorsman and fly fisherman who loved spending time in the mountains of his home state. I enjoyed having him in South Dakota and showing off some of what our state has to offer. Mr. President, my thoughts and prayers today are with his wife Lynn, with his two beloved daughters, and with his 7 grandchildren. Mr. President, quote, "Every day gets better for us," end quote. Those were the words of the Democrat leader a week into this shutdown, reflecting on the supposed benefits, political benefits for Senate Democrats. Mr. President, I guess it's nice that every day is getting better for Senate Democrats, because it sure isn't getting better for anyone else. We're in the 6th week of the Democrat shutdown, Mr. President. That's right, the 6th week. And Democrats' victims are everywhere. Let's just go through a few headlines. These are some headlines from newspapers and news outlets around the country. Some Head Start preschools shudder as government shutdown continues. Shutdown crushes small business owners as losses hits billions. Industry leaders beg Congress for a clean CR. Everyone is worried. Dallas SNAP recipients navigate uncertainty and dwindling funds. That's a Democrat shutdown at work, Mr. President. Here's another headline. After a month of the shutdown, workers face mounting bills, car repossessions. And the subhead to that article said this: finances are becoming dire for the more than 750,000 government workers who've been going without pay now for a full month. Here's some more headlines, Mr. President. Flight delays pile up as government shutdown enters 2nd month. Worst weekend for air traffic controller staffing since the start of the shutdown. Flight delays could worsen as government shutdown drags on. Could worsen, Mr. President. And we're entering one of the busiest travel seasons of the year with people making holiday plans with their families. Mr. President, there are a lot more headlines where those came from. People are suffering, all because Democrats can't bring themselves to accept a clean, nonpartisan funding bill. Mr. President, the list of people begging Democrats to pass a clean government funding extension is long, and it's growing longer. The Teamsters Union, the New York City Steamfitters Union, the American Federation of Government Employees, multiple airline pilot unions, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, business organizations like the National Restaurant Association. And Mr. President, I could go on. All of these organizations are begging Democrats to take yes for an answer and support a clean, nonpartisan bill, the one sitting right there at the desk that is available to be picked up and passed today, sent to the President, signed into law, and the government opens. The Democrats are recalcitrant. Mr. President, for a party that claims to represent working people, it is striking to me how very little Democrats seem to care about working people during this shutdown. The senior Democrat from Vermont published an op-ed this weekend in which he calls for this shutdown to keep going forever, as far as I can tell. Of course, he attempts to claim that Democrats are doing this for working people. To which I say, Mr. President, give me a break. Democrats are injuring working people with their shutdown. Maybe Democrats have no idea what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck like so many Americans, including many government employees. But let me just tell them there are a whole lot of working people out there who can't afford to miss a single paycheck, much less the multiple paychecks that they've now missed thanks to the Senate Democrats. And beyond the people Democrats have directly deprived of paychecks, there are a lot of other people whose livelihood is being affected by this shutdown, like small business owners and employees whose income has declined because the federal workers who usually patronize their businesses are out of work. There's really nothing Democrats can do to make that right. But they can at least make sure that they don't extend the pain that people are experiencing. Later today, we're going to vote once again on a clean, nonpartisan funding extension, the one we voted on 14 times already, the one sitting right at the desk, Mr. President, that would open up this government today and make sure that all of those Americans will get paid. We just need 5 Democrats to join the 3 who are already voting with us, and we could end all this pain and reopen the government. That's all it takes, Mr. President. 5 Democrats. Everybody knows, follows our government in this process, that in the Senate, it takes a supermajority. It takes 60 votes to do virtually anything. So we need help. We need help from some Democrats with a backbone who are courageous enough to take on their left-wing base and do the right thing for the American people. And I do realize, Mr. President, that Democrats are facing tremendous pressure from the far left wing of their party, which is apparently content to see working people suffer as long as Democrats make a good show of opposing President Trump. But I hope that there are at least those 5 Democrats out there who will look at the pain that people are experiencing and will say, enough is enough. We're in the 6th week now, Mr. President, of this shutdown. The 6th week. While every day may be getting better for Senate Democrats, thanks to Senate Democrats, every day is getting worse for the American people. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.
I recognize the Democrat leader.
Unanimous consent, the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
So, Mr. President, open enrollment is now upon us. 24 million Americans are now making agonizing decisions about what health care plans they choose, if they even choose one, are able to afford one, about how much they'll be able to pay, and if they can afford health care at all. I want to be very clear. This open enrollment is not like open enrollment to previous years. Never have American families faced a situation where their health care costs are set to double in the blink of an eye. But that's the reality. If you're an average American on an ACA plan, you live with that. The average American on ACA plan will pay 114% more out of pocket. 4 million Americans will lose health insurance entirely. A 60-year-old couple earning $85,000 could pay a staggering $22,600 more a year. How the hell are they going to afford that? And make no mistake, some states will suffer more than others. Here are the states that have seen the biggest increase in enrollment because of the tax credits: Louisiana, Tennessee, West Virginia, Mississippi. In other words, red states. The biggest beneficiaries of these enhanced premium tax credits are red states, millions of people in each in Florida and Texas. Republicans seem ready to tell their own constituents back home, screw you, I'd rather cut taxes for billionaires. That's what's going on. Democrats are going to keep pushing to get these premium tax credits extended. We've asked Republicans to vote for it 3 times. They voted it down 3 times. We're not asking for anything radical. Lowering people's health care costs is the definition of common sense and of what Americans want, all across the spectrum. We want only what a vast majority of Americans need and want. They want to see the tax credits extended. The Senate deserves to see serious negotiations when it comes to health care. Republicans' outrageous delay has cost Americans already too much. I yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.
All right, welcome in. Rack them up, count them up. The Senate just failed for the 14th time to advance the House-passed funding bill to end the government shutdown. 14 times. Now, this latest vote comes on the heels of Senator Majority Leader John Thune saying he believes there is a chance a funding bill could pass by the end of the week. Need a little hope, right? CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns is live on Capitol Hill. Okay, so if the Senate failed on the 14th try to pass this, what's the hope of Mr. Thune? What's the content of his hope today?
Yeah, Reed, usually I come on here sounding like a broken record and a bearer of bad news, but today does feel a little bit different because there are talks going on that seem to be leading somewhere. I know that's kind of bare bones here, but basically you have some rank and file members, Democrats and Republicans on the Senate side, looking for an off-ramp of sorts. And what they're talking about, at least at this point, is a vote to reopen the government in exchange for a vote at a later date to extend those Obamacare subsidies that have been at the heart of the Democrats' opposition to this funding measure. Now, we are still a long way to go before any of that becomes real at this point, but talking to lawmakers, there does seem to be at least some movement in those conversations. And Thune told us yesterday that he feels lawmakers are looking for some kind of off-ramp here. But Reed, I can tell you the positions remain the same. And I've talked to some other Democrats who say that they don't want any part of this, that they want a guarantee that these subsidies will be extended or else they're not voting to open the government. So the Democrats we're looking at are some of those more moderate Democrats from states either they're up for re-election or they're not running at all this time, next election cycle. There are some Democrats who say that they want the president to get involved. We haven't really seen that yet. Meanwhile, the president, for his part, is calling on Republicans to abolish the filibuster. I can also tell you that that is going nowhere up here on Capitol Hill, at least at this point. There's not an appetite among Republican leadership to do that. So basically where we are, we're headed to the longest shutdown in American history because everything I talked about is unlikely to be resolved by the end of the day today. So tomorrow will mark the longest in history. But the fact that these conversations seem to be going somewhere is a new development in this whole saga. And that's because look at what's happening outside this building. You've got air traffic controllers having to work second jobs to make ends meet. Delays, massive delays we've seen at airports already, expected to get worse. 40 million people are questioning whether their SNAP benefits are going to be there. And a host of other kind of pressure points hitting the American people are starting to hit here in Capitol Hill. So we'll see, but a different tune coming from lawmakers today than we've seen in days past.
Okay, 14 down in flames, maybe 15 will be the charm. Caitlin Huey-Burns, we know one thing's for sure. You'll be there when and if it happens. Thank you so much.